Alright, so tonight's lesson is another one about triangles, and this one is going to be pretty short, pretty sweet. So this lesson is going to be all about congruent triangles. The longest part of this video is probably going to be drawing the picture, so it's not going to take us long to get through this. Now, I'm going to start out with some triangles, and I'm going to draw two triangles that are congruent to each other. So as you probably guessed by now, I'm not going to draw two, I'm just going to duplicate. You're going to have to draw two that are, try to make it exactly the same as best you can. And I'm going to label them all, so this will be triangle A, B, C, and this is going to be triangle D, E, F. Now you saw me make these triangles, and you know that they're congruent, so something that I should be able to write, and you should be able to write, and we should be able to say, is that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. And we use that triangle symbol to let us know that this is a triangle, not an angle. Once we get over three letters, like let's say that, I'll draw real quick. You don't need to draw this, but I'm just going to do it for you so you can see. This is a square or a rectangle. This is rectangle A, B, C, D. We wouldn't write rectangle A, B, C, D. We just write A, B, C, D, and we know that it's a four-sided figure that has A, B, C, and D as its vertices. So the triangle is the only symbol that you use when you're labeling or naming a shape. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Well, if that's true, that means that AB is congruent to DE. That means that BC is congruent to EF. And it means that AC is congruent to DF. So anything that you know about congruent, meaning the lengths would be equal, the angle measures would be equal, all that kind of stuff is all going to apply to these congruent triangle problems. And we want to list out these parts that are congruent. So segment AB is congruent segment DE. Segment BC is congruent to segment EF. And segment AC is congruent to segment DF. They might be wondering why we're writing all this out. There's a reason for it. These sides, these pairs of sides, so AB and DE, and each set of them here, these are called corresponding sides. So corresponding sides. And you might remember corresponding from our last unit we did. It just means that if I pick it up and I set it on top of the other one, you can see that AB and DE wind up in the same exact spot because they're corresponding. Something else that is true when we look at this picture is that angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle B is congruent to angle E, and angle C is congruent to angle F. Those should have three lines, sorry. And we want to write that out. We want to write that angle A is congruent to angle D, angle B is congruent to angle E, and angle C is congruent to angle F. And you probably can guess what kind of angles these are, what I'm going to call them. These are called corresponding angles. Okay, so the kind of problems you're going to have is you're going to have a picture of a triangle, and you're going to have another triangle, and somehow it's going to tell you that these triangles are congruent. And it's going to say something like, well, angle A is 5x, and angle D is 12, or that's not going to work very good. Angle A would be 5x, and angle D would be 10. And I'll say, what does x equal? Well, you do 5x equals 10, because they're equal to each other, and you solve for x, find out that x equals 2. So the problems aren't really hard. They're just going to be set up where everything's equal to everything, and everything's going to be set up like that all the time. One more thing that we need to talk about before we just finish this video out is what I was saying before about polygons and shapes. So if we had a rectangle and we duplicated it, we have two congruent rectangles now. Well, all these same little rules here, and go ahead and draw the pictures. We're not going to write much more. E, F, G, H. Okay? This rectangle here, so if we have A, B, C, D, it's going to be congruent to E, F, G, H. Okay, and the only reason I'm writing this at all is so you can get a little better visual about what I'm going to show you here. When we look at these corresponding sides on this triangle here, when the triangles are side by side like this and everything's nice and neat, this is pretty easy, right? This is pretty low level thinking. But you know that it's not going to stay easy. And what's going to happen is your triangles are going to start to get turned in different directions. And they're still going to be labeled. Now my letters, unfortunately, won't turn. Or maybe they will. So I'm going to turn all my letters. So here's D, F, and again, you can just pay attention with your picture. Don't try to turn your picture. Tear your paper apart. It gets a little harder to tell which one goes with which, but if you look at the original letters, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, we can see that AB and DE are in the same spot. And sure enough, here is AB and DE congruent to each other. Then we can see that BC and EF are in the same spot here. So BC and EF. And here we have BC, EF. And even our little elusive ones on the end here, AC and DF are in the same spots, and here we have AC, DF. So as you start getting more complicated pictures, or you start getting, instead of rectangles, you start getting into shapes like this, and they start telling you things about the segments, and they're twisted around like this, and they're not facing the same way, and things just start getting more and more complex. You can always fall back on the pattern of these letters. Triangle ABC and DEF, these letters AB, BC, AC are going to match up to DE, EF, and DF. And it's really important that you get comfortable doing this from, this is called a congruence statement. It's important that you get comfortable identifying these from the congruence statement, because a lot of times a picture is going to be just horrible. It's going to be this just big blob of pictures and lines and squiggles and letters and numbers and algebra expressions, and you're going to really need something to focus on. This is what you want to focus on. So that's it for today. Come in tomorrow. We're going to do a whole lot of problems where everything's equal to everything. See you later.